Welcome to Aussie LawnStars. I've been threatening to bring Tom Benson into the LawnStars dungeon since I first started the podcast, but it's taken a while to convince him to join me. Tom runs Tink's Mowers, with the main store in Newcastle and a store in Rutherford and one in Macksville on the mid-north coast of New South Wales. Tom is one of the few dealers that really puts a big focus on serving contractors, and he's put a lot of thought into how he can serve contractors and what it takes for contractors to run a lawn care business. Let's roll the interview and let Tom explain for himself.
Welcome to Aussie LawnStars, the fresh cut lawn care podcast. We've got Aussie legends and cowboys, seasons and grasses, and we're talking about unique equipment. Prepare to hear the real life tales of local stars. Plus, we have the latest equipment, reviews, and exciting interviews with the best suppliers. We will dig the fertile field of stories from part-time solo operators who are living the life, along with those of growth-focused entrepreneurs, identifying what makes a business successful. We really do cover it all.
Welcome to my fancy bushranger dungeon.
Fancy bushranger dungeon, nice.
I need to get a couple of other bits and pieces of merch in here to represent. So
yeah, we're good.
I'll hit up Barry for some ego merch.
Hit up
I think we should do a brief introduction for you.
Righto.
So, welcome to the dungeon, the stinky dungeon, and you are Tom Benson.
Yep.
Third generation. No.
Well,
I was going to say you've been in business for a while. You've got a bit of history there.
Look, we've been in the power equipment business since I was 17, 18.
Wow.
But before that, my family were heavily into agricultural side of stuff.
Okay.
So
there's a fair bit of crossover.
Yeah, like I said, that's how we arrived here. So as the business landscape sort of changed, we sort of went from agricultural stuff into turf care equipment and forestry gear, and that's sort of how we worked out. But yeah, it sort of all goes way back to my bloody grandfather and great uncles and stuff. I don't know how many guys out there know the brand Dakin agricultural stuff.
I've heard of it, but I'm not getting confused with Dakin air conditioners. That's slightly different.
Yeah, no, not Dakin. It's Daken. But yeah, that goes all the way back to like the 50s and stuff like that. That's when they started that. They were doing Dillon pasture harrows and in here in New Zealand, and I think they sold out. Dakin is now owned by Doosan, who own Bobcat and everything like that.
I need a set of drag harrows if you can get a hold of some for me.
Well, you're about 50 years late, I think, for me to help you out.
I want to get some drag harrows, hook them on the back of my Polaris buggy, and drag them through a dam to drag all of the weed out.
Ooh. I could sell you stuff to sink all the weed to the bottom of the dam, and if you want,
that's a good option too. But ultimately, I want the bottom to be cleaned out a little bit too. So I think drag harrows are probably one of the easiest things to sort of clean the bottom off a bit.
Ooh, it depends what's on the bottom. I don't know.
There's a bit of weed in there.
I don't know. The only way to clean them really is to drain them and get a skid loader in there. But anyway, bit of fun.
But that's something I'm not doing.
No.
But certainly we can talk later off air about what products we can throw on there to clean the growth out of it.
Yeah, no problems. Yeah, I don't know. That's mainly we do that through our valley shop up the coast, but don't do a lot of don't do a lot of remediation and stuff down here. It's pure power equipment down here. So.
That's more the agricultural side of things.
Yeah. Yep.
So you've got 3 shop fronts, right?
I do, yes. So we've got Newcastle, which is where I base myself most of the time. We've got a little satellite store to Newcastle out at Rutherford.
Yep.
And it's really just there as a storage shed. There's a showroom there and sales, but it's a storage shed and a convenient spot for like people we deal with out in the valley to bring their gear in for repair. And then we'll sort of bring it to our workshop and deliver it back out there, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Sort of way back when there was a workshop running out there, but the cost of mechanics out in the Hunter Valley is just crazy.
Trying to find mechanics trying to find mechanics full stop's a hard job at the moment, right?
Oh yeah, like it's not a desirable sort of thing to work on lawnmowers for a living. Like mechanics, they want to go and work on, like, the guys that are truly passionate about it want to go and work on cars, and they're great. To get guys to work on agricultural and turf care equipment, if you want good ones, you've got to pay them. So,
well, that's probably the biggest challenge. I know, talking to other shops that shall remain nameless, the biggest gripe about them that the mechanics have about working there is working for like $25 an hour.
Well, I think most shops are paying above that now. I hope most shops are paying above that now.
I would hope so too, but that's one of the leading reasons why shops have trouble getting mechanics, because who's going to work for that sort of money nowadays?
Yeah, well, it's a thing, like making sure your workshop makes money is a full-time job nearly. It is crazy, but my guys are on a base hourly wage, and then they're on an incentive thing, and it's purely based on on average, how many hours work have I paid you for in the last 3 months versus how many hours of work have you built out?
Yeah.
And like, my best mechanic nearly makes more money than me. He makes, he clears 120 grand a year easily. I've got mechanics that are just happy to make their base hourly rate and just shop. They're good, but they're not incentivized by money.
Yeah.
So they show up to the work. So I've got one up in the Bucka Valley. He only wants to work 6 hours a day, and so he said, "I'm only working 6 hour days." So you can't.
Fair enough.
Dealers are not really in a position to say no. So it's just, you take what mechanics are willing to give at the moment, and you can incentivize them to do as well as they possibly can. And so, like, 2 of my guys are on board with it, and they do really well out of it. But the other guys are just not that interested.
So you said your third shop is up near Bucka Valley?
Yes, yeah. So in Macksville up there.
In Macksville. I know Macksville pretty well. Yeah.
So we look after sort of, there's other shops up there like there is down here, but we look after customers from sort of Bellingen all the way down to sort of Kempsey area from that shop, I guess, and then out through the coast at Stewart's Point. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Macksville's sort of 40 minutes south of Coffs Harbour, isn't it? And probably...
Yeah. Oh, it's probably closer these days.
It's a nice quick trip going up the coast there now.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer. Yeah. But yeah, like the Macksville store, it's a more complicated store. It's a much more diverse business down here. Like, we do pool and spa stuff up there. So I also get to deal not just with lawn contractors, I get to deal with guys that are doing pool and spa stuff for customers up there as well.
Nice.
We also do irrigation and household pumps and irrigation stuff. We do that in-house. We do with a couple of plumbers and customers like that, but we tend to do that in-house because there's a lot of maths and design work that goes into that you can't really just sub out to private contractors. So
it's a specialised field, isn't it?
It is, and it's a struggle. Like, if you think it's hard to get a mechanic, try getting an irrigation technician. It's like,
well, I think I don't know how much you've travelled, Tom, but what I've found, you go to Perth or South Australia and they live in a desert, so they rely on irrigation. If they didn't have an irrigation technician working in those areas, and even then it's hard to find a good irrigation technician, but they need that because they have to have irrigation there, whereas up the East Coast it's kind of like a luxury. Yeah,
well, it comes back to my history again as well. I guess I grew up, well, when I say I grew up, I lived down in the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, so I was sort of 12, 13.
Yeah, okay.
And then I moved over to South Australia, and I was there till I was 20. So I was living in Gawler River, which is sheep, like, it was cropping country and sheep farming area and stuff like that. So all my summer holidays were working on farms, basically.
Right.
Which was, it's definitely interesting. But some of my memories from back then, like, just these massive dust storms rolling in. Like, I don't think people who've only ever lived in New South Wales can even conceive of some of the storms and stuff that rolled in off the outback. It was just massive. Yeah.
I've lived in Lake Macquarie in that area, not in the lake, but I've lived in the area for 40 years.
Okay.
And I can say once, and it's been in the last period of time that I've been running a business, that I have seen a red sunset where the red was purely from dust rolling in from the over the Great Divide.
Must have seen a few fiery ones in the years.
Well, yeah, you definitely get a few fiery ones, but to get that roll over the Great Divide from out west and just go, that's just dust that's been blown in from the wind, was was a unique experience.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I haven't seen, like, I only saw probably 3 or 4 of those dust storms when I was living in South Australia. But it was, I've just not seen anything like that since I moved to the East Coast.
Yeah.
Nothing even remotely like it. It's incredible.
Mm. So, yeah, we certainly have a unique environment on the East Coast when you're talking across Australia, but the majority of the population live on the East Coast, so they would consider that to be normal. And
I still, I don't consider that climate that I was living out there to be normal at all. It was that was crazy.
Yeah, the Tasmanians and the Northern Territory residents are the smaller populations, and then West Australia, as a capital city, Perth is similar size to Brisbane, so they've got a bit of population around the capital city, but otherwise West Australia is a really sparse environment, and even in the city there, it's so different from the East Coast.
Yeah, I've travelled West Australia limited amount. Like I spent about 3 months going down there. Like I did the thing when I was 19. Oh, no, actually, I might have been 22, 23. We bought an XF panel van and did a lap of Australia, me and my then girlfriend, now wife. So we spent 12 months rolling around. We spent about 3 or 4 months sort of travelling, probably on the West Coast.
So you say you were about 23. That must be like 12 months ago, right?
No, man, I'm 40. I'm still 40, so I haven't let another year go by yet. But geez, they're getting quick.
Yeah,
40.
40 even.
40 even. 40 and neat.
I'm 6 years in front of you.
Oh yeah. Doing all right, guys.
Yeah, I'm happy.
How many kids are you for 43? 46, sorry.
Yes, there's 4 kids in the family, but 2 of them are stepchildren, so I carry it pretty well for a 46-year-old.
Yeah, I'm 40 for 3 now and out. So
yeah. Well, I've told the story about me getting the snip on the podcast before, so I won't bring that one up again.
I didn't. We had 2. I got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old boy, and we always wanted a third, and just never really happened for us. And then we turned 40, and bang, another one.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
So is it an 8-year gap, is it, or somewhere close?
8-year gap. So
wow.
Yeah, so about a little girl though. We didn't have a girl, so it's all pretty exciting for my wife Donna. She's loving it. So
that's the way you want it. And big brothers are old enough to appreciate that and be very protective big brothers.
I think they will be. Yeah, they both. Yeah, she gets a lot of attention, which she loves. So.
Yeah, the youngest usually does. My youngest is 5 or 6 years younger than the next one, so
okay, that's not too bad.
I'm just thinking because she's 14 at the moment and my son is 20, so basically 6 years between them.
Righto.
Yeah.
So just trying to circle back about how I got into power equipment.
Yes. Yeah. Got on a side.
Okay. Yeah, we did a bit. Like I said, my family started Dakin agricultural implements. They were doing electric fencing and slashes and dealing with pasture harrows, all that sort of stuff, made in Australia. And then they were sort of expanded, and so that was on my mum's side of the family. And when Dad got engaged to Mum, he went and worked with him. He was a production engineer by trade.
Okay.
So we went and helped them set up all their injection molding kind of stuff for electric fencing. And once that was up and running, he went to Victoria, and that's where I was born, down in the Mornington Peninsula there. But yeah, sort of after that, all sort of, when my pops died, my granddad died back in, I think it must have been 84, 85. I was only 1 or 2. Right. Sort of the family business sort of started to unravel a bit. It carried on for a long while after that, but Dad stopped being involved. But never really left the industry. He was doing Peninsula Farm Supplies was a business he ran down there for a while. And then someone he used to work with went down and started a company down there called Kanga Farm Implements, which is still running now. So his son's running Kanga now. I still talk to him a fair bit.
So is that the brand Kanga that we see around doing various different products?
Not mini loaders.
Okay,
just
not that one.
Farm implements. Yeah. So it's farm implements. They do that, and they do an Italian line of stuff as well. And so so Dad went out and did his own thing for a while, and then we moved to South Australia because one of the things he was doing was hook lift loading hydraulic equipment. He was importing from France and distributing around Australia.
Yeah. Okay.
He went to an agricultural show in Italy with the agricultural side of the business, where they were using these things on trailers towed behind tractors to sort of pick up like hay baling equipment, and it was like a multi-implement loader kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So he started bringing that into Australia, but it really took off in the waste handling side of things, like with Cleanaway and all those big waste kind of mobs. But yeah, about probably which must have been 25 years or so ago, 20 years ago maybe, that got bought out by Palfinger.
Okay. Yep.
Plains. So he lost that agency and we moved to South Australia and we started distributing that Kanga farm equipment out there for the South Australian state. And as an aside to that, we picked up Great Dane mowers because they were being brought into the Country by Hills district.
Yeah. Yeah. On a previous podcast, I talked about the Great Dane and the connection between Great Dane and Skag.
Yeah, so Great Dane was his second time around from memory. He started Bobcat, Dane Skag.
Yeah.
And then left Bobcat, and then he did Great Dane. And what happened there was that they came to market with one of the very first stand-ons. Like we had one out there, this Super Surfer. We sold a couple of those in South Australia. They were heaps of fun.
Yeah, okay.
But they came to market with that like in 99, 2000, somewhere around there. I think.
Wow.
So going back a bit, but even though they came to market with it first, Wright actually had all the patents to do with it. So there was a whole legal stoush battle going on there, and Wright eventually won that. And Great Dane ended up liquidating and selling out to John Deere, and I think it went to Ariens Corp first, and then to John Deere. Or anyway, went through the ringer and did the rounds with what was left of it, and it's pretty much nothing left of it. But after Great Dane, Dane Skag went and started Skag, of course. So, yeah.
Well, I've got a friend in Currumbong who still uses a Great Dane, and I saw him using it on Friday last week.
Yeah.
And he was mowing near where I was, and when he had the blades running, it was just so noisy. It's like, come on, mate, pull that spindle out and fix the bearing. It's so noisy.
Yes. Well, it doesn't surprise me. Like, it's been a long time since we've seen it in our workshops. But they were magical bits of gear, especially from a service point of view. Like you could pick up the operator platform at the back, lift it up, and fold the whole top half of the machine over, and just service everything. It was so simple.
So is that the stand-on unit?
No, that was the sit-on their chariot.
The sit-on one. Okay, yeah, that's probably what my friend's got.
Yeah, they were so easy to work on. It was brilliant.
Nice.
But it was very, very early days for zero turns, I guess.
So that was so was it your father that was working that business?
Yeah, so he was, because his sort of family connections through the ag side of things. We started doing the agricultural distribution in South Australia, and then he picked up the Great Dane gear. I was still finishing high school at this stage. I was just helping him out in the school holidays kind of things. But because Hills District were selling that same brand of farm equipment that we were distributing in South Australia. Yes. And they were handling most of it for northern New South Wales.
And I think Hills District still had Great Dane when I started my business.
Probably, yeah. They had that for a long time.
Great Dane and Dixon.
Then they had, Great Dane, they had Dixon, and I think now they're doing Red Max. I'm pretty sure they're doing Red Max now. So, yeah.
Well, Dixon got bought out by Husqvarna Group anyway, I believe, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
So the Red Max and the Husqvarna are basically the same thing as what the old Dixon was.
Yeah, similar units, slightly different spec engines here and there. It's the Husqvarna Red Max thing's an interesting one. They keep doing it to themselves. Like they've had on the handheld side, they've had Poulan Pro, they've had McCulloch. They've had all these things where it was the same thing in different colours through different sales channels. Yeah. Every time there's a new marketing manager at Husqvarna, they go, "Why aren't we doing this?" And it's something they've already done, but they just do it again. So
yeah. I noticed they've got the Gardena brand as well. So
yeah, Gardena's an interesting little sideline for them. I guess they don't push it anywhere outside of Bunnings, as far as I can tell. They're definitely not keen on us Husqvarna dealers being able to sell it.
That's
They
it.
also own
Yeah.
another water brand. They own Nita Gartering, which was
Okay.
originally an Australian brand. So, but yeah, Husqvarna own that these days,
There
as
you
of
go.
probably 10 years ago or so. So,
Yep.
but again, we deal with them a little bit on that at our Macksville store, but not at all.
Yeah.
Not even the watering down here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
look, it's the hunt is interesting, at least where we are. Like when the water
Yes.
restrictions kick in down here, they just say no watering. So
Yeah.
last drought we had, like that 2017, 2018, there were irrigation shops going out of business because people weren't allowed to irrigate at all. Like you were allowed to water your stock, and that was about it.
Yeah.
So the irrigation places were going out of business at a time when they should have been bloody, like up north. We were powering, like our business switched to
Yeah.
like 70% irrigation during that time, just because up there it was like the restrictions were less. So that if you like, we sort of started to get specialised in smart irrigation. Like we've got controllers with soil moisture level sensing, yeah, controllers with soil moisture level sensing and rain sensing and things like that, and they can adapt and change to the irrigation program based on what has actually happened with the local climate.
So do you see, is that mostly for agricultural use?
Aggie and residential up there. But that's
Okay.
not too
Yep.
many people. Not too many people deliberately water their lawns up the coast at
No.
all.
And see, that's the thing. On the East Coast, you either don't need to water or you're not allowed to water.
Yeah, well, I've always after having grown up in South Australia, like we had lawn there, but that's because we wanted it. Like you had
You had to work
irrigation
for it.
systems, you had fertigation, you had like fertilizer injection systems and stuff like that. If you didn't want grass to grow, you had dust.
Yeah.
It wasn't a choice. And
Yep.
it was South Australia, sort of right the way down to Adelaide, I reckon. At least when I was living there, was much the same. Like you go
Yeah.
further down south, like Aldinga and I don't know, but when you get further down south, it's quite a little green corner of South Australia there. But
Yeah.
yeah,
You're getting
generally,
down closer to Victoria then.
yeah, generally speaking, if you unless you want a lawn, you don't have one. That was
Yeah.
at least that was my experience of living there. So I don't know.
And that's the same around Perth too. If you don't put the effort in, you don't have a lawn.
Yeah. Oh well, you still get grass though over there. I don't know.
I
do
took
get the
pictures
occasional.
of a new subdivision over there where there was a house on one side of the street and there was a vacant lot on the other side of the street. And where the house was, we were doing cylinder mowing with the Mowmaster, of course. And on the other side of the street, the vacant block that was waiting to be built out, it just looked like a desert. It was just sand. There was nothing growing.
Yeah, like it's oh yeah, it's definitely different to the East Coast. Like I think it's
Yeah.
something that we we don't really understand about each other. Is that over there, like they're going about how cylinder mowing is awesome, and it does. It gives
Yeah,
you a brilliant finish. But
definitely.
if you've got a lawn over there, it's generally because you've leveled a patch of dirt, you've
Yeah.
laid the turf, and
Yep.
you're only having to mow it. If you mow it once a week, you can have a pristine lawn. Over here, like
Yeah.
when the grass is on over here, and especially even like further up north, it's even way more noticeable than it is in Newcastle. Like, but if
Yeah.
you mow it, you can have an okay looking lawn if you mow once a week. I think
Yeah.
in the Newcastle area at peak
Yep.
season. But up the coast there, it's only 300 k's up the coast. You'd need to mow sort of 2 or 3 times a week to keep your lawn looking tidy up there.
So
It
this is the
grows.
thing I can't understand this about Australia. It doesn't matter where you go in Australia. We've got the mentality as a contractor that you mow fortnightly. You go to the US and they mow weekly. And if
Yeah.
you talk to Luke Smith, he did an interview with a couple of like greenskeepers and sports field managers, and they mow daily. And it's like if you
Yes.
don't mow daily, you lose
Yeah.
quality. And it's like I can understand that.
You lose density, yeah, and you end up with
Yeah.
weeds and whatnot. So it's
Yeah.
I don't know, if you're looking after a particular patch of grass and that's your job as a greenkeeper, then yeah, I think you mow daily. That's cool. But I don't know if you want to do weekly type mows, you've really got to find the right customer who wants you to pay that. I don't think the contracting game's different. I think once you go more than about sort of that fortnightly frequency schedule, anyone who wants it more than that is really needing to do it themselves, I think.
Well, this is the thing. If you do it yourself, you do it weekly or
Yes.
more.
Yeah,
But
like I said, when it's on, I'm on the sand here at Port Stephens. up that way, and it's it's horrible soil profile, but just the grass doesn't. Yeah, if I got to mow 2 or 3 times a week during spring and summer, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yep, and that's the thing. I've got the robotic mower in my backyard, and it just mows daily and keeps it looking like a golf course.
Yeah, I should probably get around to dropping. I've got a robot in my shed. I should probably get around to dropping it in. But I haven't. I don't know.
Even just a cheap Gardena would do the trick.
Oh, I've got Husky's new Aspire one, mate. They're only
yes.
What are they? $1,300, $1,400, I think they are. So
a good value, aren't they?
I've just got all that stock arrived. So I'm doing that home show on the 16th, just around the corner here, and I'm gonna put one out for demo. And I don't know. Yeah, it's a new area for them to play in, like that small kind of yard and sort of 18 volt stuff. It's a new customer group for them to look at, I guess. But not much to do with contractors. If I catch any of them using this stuff, I'll be disappointed.
Well, I think there's room for it. I talked to Richard Hogan up Mackay, and he was doing it with the Mobot, and I think the Husky Aspire is probably equivalent to a Mobot in a lot of ways.
Yes,
so
yeah.
What he was doing, he picked half of his customers where it was suitable to put a robotic mower in their backyard, and so he had the majority of the mowing done with the robotic mower, and then he would come around to visit the customer once a fortnight and do the nature strip and the whip snipping, or the gardening if they wanted gardening done as well.
And look, there's a couple of companies in Australia doing that. It's really quite a huge thing in the States. That whole where I don't know how they really do it over there. I think I don't know if they're buying the machines and leasing them to the customers or just owning the machines and paying them down. I don't know exactly how the business mechanics of it are all working over there, but it's basically you get a machine and you install it at your customer's place. And you go there and you do the hedges or the edges every couple of weeks. And they only need doing every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Unless you've
got a really if you got a really fastidious customer, they might want their edges done every other day. But if they're paying for it once a fortnight.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you'd only otherwise be getting it once a fortnight. But
that's right.
Interesting. But look, there's a lot of talk on there about on the LMCA, I guess I'll talk about because that's sort of the main group. I guess I pop my head up in every now and again. But it's how the normal thing is to do the once a fortnight visit and this and that. But there is a real variety of business models out there in our industry. Like we deal with some really interesting guys.
Well, I have found there are customers that are happy to pay for weekly mowing.
Yep.
But you're not going to get everyone over the line with weekly mowing. If you've got an area where you've got a range of socioeconomics, then you can pick the customers that want the better lawn. They want to have lawn envy, and you give them 3 quotes, and the middle quote is going to allow them to choose to have weekly mowing for part of the year. And sell it.
I'll talk about some of the businesses we deal with without mentioning names or anything like that because
sure.
Me on the bus, but some of them we like. One of the interesting ones to do with, he treats your garden care. He doesn't call it lawn care because it's garden care because they do everything, but he treats it. He says he sells it to his customers. It's no different to a mobile phone kind of thing.
Yep.
You've got it. It's a service. The only difference is how he does it. It's like he will be out there. He will sell you a program that says there's going to be 20. I don't know his exact programs he does, but he'll build a program based on their yard after he looks at it. Say, I'm going to be out here. I'm going to do 26 mows in a year. I'm going to do 5 hedge trims. I'm going to do this, that, and that. And it's going to cost you, like when he breaks it down, it sounds cheap because he charges them every week.
Yeah.
So it might be $55 or $60 a week for the program, but it's every week for a whole year. It's like a subscription kind of thing. And at peak season, he might be there once a week. Like on some of the lawns that are more demanding, says I'm be there once a week. Yeah. It will slow down and stretch the frequency out. And then in the off season, he might be there once a month, but they're still paying that once a week charge kind of thing. And so you've got your guys that are saying $80 is sort of your standard visit kind of thing. If you're there once every 2 weeks, Well, he's out there marketing his business as $40 a week
Yeah.
because he's going to charge you $40 a week. He's only going to be there once every 2 weeks, but he puts. But he's saying it's $40 a week, and he finds that works for people because most people live week to week, like they're paid weekly.
Yes.
So if they know my garden costs me $40 a week, it's really easy to budget for those kind of people.
Yep, for
Whereas
sure.
if they have to say, well, my lawn costs me $80 every 2 weeks, they've got to put $40 a week aside the first week they get paid and not spend it.
Yeah.
And people aren't that great at that.
Yep. So
yeah.
I've noticed that for sure. If you're asking people to put the money aside to have it there ready for you when you turn up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't
always work.
You definitely. It's chasing money, like doing the actual business admin kind of things is not what you guys should be doing. Hopefully you guys are getting paid on the day, most of you, at least for residential work.
Yeah. I've found with the cut frequency, if you look at fortnightly cuts, most people are doing 20 to 21 cuts a year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and like I said, I don't know on that guy, that specific guy, and he's the only one I deal with that does that, and he does it with a lot of success. And it's purely the fact that he thinks that the success from him is that he can say to people, it's X dollars a week, and that's just easy for them to budget for. And even he doesn't deal with customers that says, oh, I have to be home when you have to be home and this and that sort of stuff. He says part of his deal is that I'm coming on my own schedule and I'm going to do it. And if you're home, that's great. If you're not home, it's probably even better. But but yeah, he just, like I said, and some of you guys know, like in the last couple of seasons, we've had once every 2 weeks, like in this July, August just gone, every 2 weeks was probably still too much for a lot of properties. Like the grass wasn't growing.
Yeah.
It is only just sort of kicking now around here. So
most people, if they do fortnightly cuts, then most people will do fortnightly cuts from about now or sort of late September through till the end of April. So you end up with that 20 to 21 cuts a year, and through winter they might be doing once every 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah. And this winter, I know people who haven't cut some jobs for the whole winter, or on average 6 to 8 weeks between, which is 6 to 8 weeks gets you like 2 cuts through the middle of winter.
Yep. And like I said, the other thing, I can understand how that fortnightly schedule is easy, and that's what makes it attractive to the contractors, I guess, is that it's an easy thing to manage a schedule. You can have enough customers on your books that if you lose one, it's not so much a disaster. If you're doing weekly cuts, like you can probably only fit realistically, I don't know, 30 or 40 customers in.
Yeah.
If you're doing them every week. If you lose one, that's a reasonable amount of your business, and then you've got to find the time to replace them as well. Whereas, I don't know, if you're running a 2-week schedule and you lose one, it's like you've got sort of 80 customers on your books, maybe 90, 100. So it doesn't matter as much. And it's a good way to hedge your bets, I guess. But yeah, it's just like I said, that whole thing about it being a standard. It is the way most guys go, but it's definitely not the only way to do things.
Yeah, definitely not. And I like giving customers options and saying, okay, you can have 20 cuts a year, or you can have 30 cuts a year, or you can have 40 cuts a year. And if you're at 20 cuts a year, you're my worst customer, but you're good. But that's the worst customer I've got. And if you're at 30 or 40 cuts a year, you're also going to get fertilizer and weed treatment and the whole lot thrown in.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like as far as I'm concerned as well, you should be going in there for people that are worried about, especially the way things are at the moment with everyone wanting things cheaper or anything like that. You should be going in there and offering 2 prices. You should be going in and saying, that's how much it is mulched. That's how much it is caught and collected.
Yeah.
And that's how much it is if I catch it and collect it and have to take the green waste away. So maybe 3 prices is what you should be quoting.
Yeah. But if you give 3 quotes to the customer, then they don't need to go and get a quote off somebody else because they've got 3 prices from you.
And look, if you present someone with 3 prices and they want to haggle on the price, you go, well, look, if you can't afford to do a caught and collect, then look, I can mulch it. It's heaps cheaper because it only takes less time.
Yeah.
Just going to cut it, slash it, walk away. But yeah, I don't know. The residential market. I mean, the Macksville store does deal with a lot of residential type customers, which is good.
Yeah.
My Newcastle store, we don't. We get quite a few. I like to call them sort of aspirational residential kind of customers. The guys that want to use professional quality gear on their farms or holiday farms they've got up here or stuff like that. They're the only exposure we get to residential customers these days.
In the Newcastle area,
yeah. We don't actively market to homeowners anymore, and it's an ongoing thing I have with my suppliers, because to have that access to their commercial product ranges, you say, like, the law isn't like, well, not the law, but the dealer agreements are that you just got to stock everything. And
right.
So I've got everything here, and all of the residential stuff that doesn't sell through here. Pain in the butt.
Yeah, so you have that dusted off and then sold at cost price later on.
Yeah, I would much prefer to not have it here at all. So it's not as tempting to some contracts. I'll just get a cheap one, kind of thing. That's the wrong one. But that their commercial contractor program sort of negates that a bit for us. Like, we really just we end up sending most of that residential type stuff out to either Rutherford or Macksville, I guess. That's where it tends to find its home. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, very good.
But yeah, so some of the other models you work with, like the robotics one you mentioned, I don't have anyone doing that yet, at least on our books here, where they've got robots in customers' yards and then doing the edging and hedging and the gardening work.
Yeah,
I guess. But it is becoming a definite business model in the USA, at least.
Yep.
And it's another way of hedging your customer base, I guess, in that you've got the mower there, the lawn is mowed. All you got to do is do the edging and the hedging, and half the blocks you go to, it's I don't know, probably 15 or 20-minute job to do that. It's not a big ask.
Well, I know I've installed at least one. Yeah. I've installed at least one robot where I know that the customer who bought the robot was still having a contractor turn up to do the edges, and I wasn't offering to do that. I was simply selling them the robot.
Okay.
But yeah, for them, that was a case of going, okay.
Should put a bid in, mate. But no, I think that business model has got legs. It's as this whole industry sort of moves into the battery and automation stage thing, you've got to sort of try and, I don't know, nothing stays the same as much as you want it to. Jesus, this industry has changed in the last 20 years, and it's changing so fast now. Yeah. It's so hard to stay on top of. But it's it's a definite business model. It's a lot of money up front for a business model, I think, because at the moment, the way things are, you're either buying or taking out a bank loan or a finance package or something to buy, I don't know, 10, 20 robots, get them out there. But it's a productivity increaser, or a productivity multiplier, as they like to say in the States. It just means you can suddenly put more customers on your books.
Yeah.
Because you're not spending as long on each property. So
I look at it from the point of view of going, okay, for the average customer, you don't need a $5,000 to $8,000 robotic mower.
No,
you need that. You need that
one, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. So if you look at a $1,500 robot, and the customer might be worth, say, that particular customer I'm thinking of is probably worth $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
So if you incorporate the cost of the robot into their fortnightly cut price, and then after a year, you're not paying for the robot, you're just making money from every time you turn up and spend 15 minutes there instead of 45 minutes there.
Yeah, so the real thing, it becomes a bit of a salesmanship kind of thing from the contractor's point of view. I guess he's pushing that model. He's got to get the customers to see the value in paying a weekly amount to have the lawns automatically mowed without getting the customer to either go out and buy their own robot, or even if they want to go and buy their own, so what, I guess. But
I think what you'll find is a lot of customers don't want the expense of buying the robot, and they don't want the hassle of having to be responsible for it, to go out there and make sure it's still working when it comes up with a message, a notification to say there's something going on.
Yeah,
so if you take responsibility for that as a contractor, then you get the benefit of owning it, and they stay on a fortnightly payment or a weekly payment.
Look, I think the right customer base to target that sort of business model to would be landlords. the biggest, some of the biggest issues, I guess you guys would have as well as us, is with tenants and unmaintained properties and things like
Yeah.
that. And for a landlord, having a robot there, which has cost him, I don't know, it might cost $30 a week on a lease or something like that, and plus your lawn services on top or whatever.
Yep.
That's just a lot of landlords are looking for expenses they can write off against their properties because they're doing them as income tax offsets, and they're negative gearing everything. So if there's an extra 50, 60, $70 a week of expenses that go towards them having their rental properties, but they know that the garden's being maintained, then that's great. Like that's another 60, $70 a week they can write down their income.
For a lot of properties, it won't actually increase the fortnightly payment. If you've got a contractor there mowing the lawn for it anyway, a landlord will choose to do that.
Yep.
Then switching it from contractor doing the mowing once a fortnight to the robot does the mowing and the contractor still turns up and does the gardening and the edges.
Gardening, yeah.
But the reality is, in my area, if I was to apply that model to rental properties, I would say 5 to 10% of rental properties are suitable for that because the majority of them have the kids' toys and the dog poo everywhere.
Yeah. Look, that's the other challenge. Like you'd probably know the robots haven't got, and that's probably the best part about the robots. They don't have a problem with dog shit. They'll just drive over it. They don't spread it everywhere because they're not going that fast. But it's not like mowing. It's not like robots are not like mowing something with your rotary where they're spraying shit everywhere and they're flicking rocks into windows and it's just not.
Mine's a problem in my backyard because I cut it at 20 millimeters high, so I'm cutting it like a golf green.
And you got the fairway kit on yours, have you guys?
And the Labrador does larger than 20 millimeter high dog poo.
Yeah. I guess
I'll put a spacer in my blade so it cuts low.
Yeah, okay. So you got the fairway kit on. Yeah, look, that's not something we fit as standard to many machines. We've got fairway kits on some of the machines we got out in commercial places. But that's about it. That's just keeping on.
Well, I do it just because I'm a nutcase, and I'm tempted to put another spacer in there and make it cut down to 15 mil.
Look, if you've got I think they can cut all the way down to 12. I think with the right spacers on them, the Huskies.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of having the right lawn for that. Sort of like they do. They call them fairway kits because they're actually designed for putting on their commercial mowers that mow the fairways. But you can fit them to the residential mowers. That's fine. So
well, I'm tempted to do one on my commercial site soon as well because I've got an area there where I cut it once or twice a week with the zero turn, and then there's a little spot there where I've started cutting it lower. I'm cutting it down on the lowest possible setting on the right ZK.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, if I put a robot there, it's going to look so much nicer because the ZK is 61-inch cut, whereas a robot's down to 18, 20, maybe 25 centimeter cut.
Yeah, like I think the 22 or 25 is pretty much standard for most robots.
But the one doing my backyard's 18, so it's a tiny one. But go up to 20 or 25 centimeter cut, and you can cut lower than what you can with a bigger deck, obviously. So you can make it look immaculate. So I'm looking at doing that there on the commercial site where I've got that already looking good, and just like I can make it look better with a robot.
Yeah, and look, that's one of the things. Like we noticed, we've got a couple of we've got one installation where there's two big machines running at the moment, and one of them bowed out, and it was in a municipal swimming pool, and so it was closed, and so so one of them had an issue and it stopped working, and no one was on duty because the pool was closed for the off season, and so that's how I just let go. But the difference in quality. What they had to come in there with a front mount mower and sort of mow that whole zone before you get that mower up and running again. But it looked like windrows in a hay paddock. What they'd managed to do in there versus it was like a golf. It is just such a quality cut. And I mean, you can go into all the like turf studies and stuff like that, and they'll say it's up there with cylinder mowing. I don't think it's quite up there, but it's close. And the longer depends. The longer you leave it running on a patch of turf, the better. It just gets better and better. It's unreal.
It depends what you want out of a turf because cylinder mow does a scissor cut on the turf, on the blade of grass, right? So you get that perfect cut blade of
Yeah.
grass, but it also rolls it as you go. So it helps to flatten it out and level it, and you get the stripes. You don't get that with the robotic mower, but with a robotic mower, you've got a razor blade, which is cutting really well, and you replace them if you're doing a really fancy finish. You're
Yeah.
probably going to replace the blades every 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, every couple of months is what we normally
Yeah.
recommend. But
So
they're
if you
little
do it
tiny
that,
razor type sharp blades. So
yeah. So if you
look,
replace them that often, the cut's going to be great.
I could get you stripes from a robot mower, guys. It's just that they're not cheap. You got to go to their
Well,
EPOS. Got to go to their EPOS stuff.
I'm yet to see a robot that's got a weighted cylinder on the back of it so that it
Oh
rolls
no,
the grass as it goes.
no, but no. No, but with the right turf and the right robot,
Yeah.
you can get stripes, but you can set it up
Yeah.
to mow like diagonal stripes. Then it's
Yeah.
more systematic mowing than the random stuff that the basic domestic models do.
But I
So
really like the finish from the random finish. So
yeah,
it looks like a carpet because it's
it
not
is.
got any wheel marks or stripes or anything like that. It just looks really nice. And if you cut it low, then going to grass technology, if you're cutting the grass more often, then it fills out more. It gets more lateral growth rather than vertical growth. As soon as you allow vertical growth to go on for more than a day or a week, then you get less lateral growth and it thins out and you get more weeds. So
Oh, look, I agree with you. The random pattern mowing gives a better finish, I think.
yeah,
But there's people that want stripes. But there's also the fact that when
yeah,
you go to systematic mowing, you can cover nearly twice the area
yeah. I've
with the
heard up to 3
same
times.
battery. So like I look at Husky, like they've got their 450X, which was their top of the line residential machine. It's
That
good for about
does 5,000 square
5,000
meters.
square meters, and then they got their 550, which is basically the same machine
Yeah,
with all the onboard electronics taken off and put into the cloud. Basically,
yep,
it's only got one button. It's just got a start-stop button. That one.
yep,
It's designed for commercial sites.
yeah,
That one can do 10,000 square meters because the EPOS version of it can do 10,000 square meters because it
yes,
mows systematically. It goes stripes,
yep,
but every time it comes out of the station, by default, you can change it, but it'll do like the first time it comes out, it might do horizontal, then it'll switch to a
yep,
30-degree angle, then it might do
yep,
90s. So they're still
yeah,
trying to get that finish out of it.
yep,
But yeah, in a fine leaf turf, it will actually leave stripes, apparently.
yeah,
So yeah.
yep. It's interesting. I think that there's still room for a bit of improvement over the next few years as we
Oh,
get more and more of those machines doing the parallel cut.
there's a lot. Like I was speaking to the new managing director of Husky. She's a Swedish person, so she's out here going, "Why are we
Yeah,
still using ride-ons?" Because like in Europe, like eight out of every 10 houses over there supposedly have a robotic mower.
yeah,
That's the way they mow their lawns over there now, and
yep,
it's different. Like they don't have the division between front and backyards that we do in Australia, which is one of the major hurdles.
yep,
They don't often have boundary fences. They don't. They
yeah,
just they've just live in sort of more communal kind of environments. Um,
yep,
and that's like Europe is where all these robotic mowers are coming out of, and sort of that's the environment they're designed to work really, really well in.
yeah,
And I think there's like that sort of European model thinking. I I, I do get that feeling from Husqvarna that that's sort of where they're really trying to push their Australian division into. Like they want us to be
yeah,
more European, but
yeah,
honestly, we're more American. So
yep.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
and
a
it's a different model, which
yeah.
there's ways and means of getting around that and looking at what works well in Australia compared to what works well in Europe. It's going to be different.
Yes, yeah, it's different. And look, they've got all sorts of nifty things. Like they've got automatic gates that the mowers can drive up to and raise the gate and drive through and things like that.
Yep.
So they can do the front and backyards on control path and things like that. But often by the
Yeah.
time you get everything done that needs to be done, it's best just to have one mower out the front and another one out the back. And
Yeah.
we've done a
Definitely.
few setups like that. You just have the GPS tracked unit out doing the front yard, and then
Yep.
you just have the cheaper one out the back.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, and it works fine.
I think as more and more people start looking at these, you'll probably get people that go, "Oh, well, if I've got a GPS tracked unit out the front, then maybe I'll put the fence towards the back of the house and have a bigger front yard."
I don't know. There's not
Show it off.
look, there's something I talk to Husqvarna about occasionally, every time I get a chance, basically. There's no design guidelines like for if you were a landscape architect out there designing a yard, there is no best practices for designing a yard to work well with robotic mowers. There is nothing written. Like they've got their limitations. They're designed to work within specific things. Like if you need like flat 300 mil return garden edges for an ideal finish and things like that, so they can mow right up and drive right over the edges. And
that's it.
It's not a normal thing in Australia. Like most of us, you've got the vertical garden edges, and so there's a bloody 6-inch unmowed strip around the outside of the yard all the time. So it's not great. But
I've installed one that's a Ambrosio. It does 5,000 square meters, and because it's a complex area that I've got it doing, I initially thought, I'll get it to do the full 5,000 square meters, and it'll be brilliant. It'll save me a lot of work. After I started working on the install, and I was like, actually, that part of the install is going to be almost impossible to do because of the garden edges. And then I thought I'll come back to that. I'll work it out later. And then I got it started working on about 4,000 square meters total at the moment. Now, I've realized after doing the install, because it's a complicated setup, that it's not actually going to do 5,000 square meters well anyway.
Well, no, and that's something to realize, and you know this, guys, but some people might not. That when they say a robot's capable of doing 5,000 square meters, that's in cool climates, and that mower is mowing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It's also basically in a perfect circle with no obstacles in the road. So every area of the lawn is equal distance at any point in time, so you can.
Husky will say plus or minus, and my experience says that they say plus or minus 20%, I think, on their quoted figures. And my experience is like that does allow for all of the obstacles and whatnot. But I still think they're wrapping their heads around the fact that grass grows yay fast in Melbourne and 12 times that fast in Townsville. And so trying to put this mower does 5,000 square meters label on one unit and sell it everywhere from Melbourne to Townsville doesn't work. Like we have to derate mowers by, even between Newcastle and Nambucca, we have to derate robots by like 20 to 25% in terms of area handling capability, because the grass just grows that much faster the further north you get. It's crazy.
If you look at the full set of criteria that you've got to assess it by, you go, okay, grass growth is one of those factors, right? And I think they allow for 4 millimeters of growth a day. So if you've got it fast growing in Australia, it's going to be 10 millimeters of growth a day. That's a problem, right? And then if you've got a slope that's more than about 5 degrees, then that's going to reduce its capacity. If you've got obstacles, then that's going to reduce its capacity. If you've got more than one area, that's going to reduce its capacity. So there's all these various different factors that mean that it can go from a 5,000 square meter robot down to a 2,000 square meter robot or a 1,000 square meter robot.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the danger, I guess, in the residential DIY side of the robots game, and that's why it hasn't really taken off, I guess, in Australia. I mean, when I say it hasn't taken off, it is taking off. There's a lot of people. It's taking off with a subset of the customer base. It's not your mum and dad out there getting one though and doing it themselves, because it's so easy to get it wrong. Or if you buy based on what the manufacturer tells you it's capable of, and you install it perfectly, and it still can't handle the task that you've given it. I
had an interesting thing happen this week on this particular topic. I was listening to the local Christian radio station, and the DJ had just bought a robotic mower from the Good Guys. So we'll leave that out there. I think you'll work out which one it is.
Husky,
And I'm like, okay, they've bought a robotic mower from the Good Guys. They're gonna install it themselves, and they're expecting it to be like a robotic vacuum cleaner. They can just go, yep, there you go, off it goes, does its thing, don't need to worry about it. And I'm like, I actually messaged into the radio station, and I said, I'm a robotic mower installer. And then I sent another message. I said, call me if you need help.
Call me when you need help would have been a better one. But
yes.
Look, they're far and like your basic techie sort of person who like is into his home automation. He's got all his little, I don't know, Alexa boxes and stuff all through his house. He's not going to have any problems setting up a robot mower.
Yeah, definitely.
But he's also probably not the guy that's going to have an immaculate lawn either. There's not a really big overlap between tech heads and lawn enthusiasts in my experience. There's just
put it to you another way. You and I are probably two of the lawn enthusiasts in Australia that actually do have that overlap.
Yes, yeah, I haven't mentioned that part of my career yet.
It was still a massive learning curve for me to go from this is interesting to let's install one to let's get qualified as an installer and go, okay, there's so much to learn there about what will and won't work. And the number one thing I've come across is the amount of robotic mowers that have been installed poorly or oversold, or the customer gets fed up with it and says, get rid of that thing. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, well, they're very often they're sold as a set and forget solution. Like people, like they get oversold, just like you said. And they're not like you can't just ignore them, and that's why I think they're best as that sort of business model where a contractor installs it and looks after it, because like once every couple of months you can change the blades, you can change the schedule out there if the grass is growing faster, or you can if there is a problem with the boundary wire on what machines that have boundary wires, you can fix it because you're through in the next sort of week kind of thing. And you can get and if you need to is it Husky, you've got a great platform for contractors called Fleet Services, which is pretty much free. Any of their X series machines signs up to that, and you can keep real-time track of all of your customers, all the machines you've installed at customers' properties, and it'll send you alerts like if someone does nick one, or if the boundary wire breaks, or it gets stuck somewhere, or if it throws a blade and goes out of balance, you just send an alert to your phone and you can squeeze in a scheduled visit kind of thing. It's not a big deal. Like we run a Fleet Services account for us looking after our commercial installs. We charge a monthly fee to monitor people's mowers for them. It's good.
Well, after doing this for more than 12 months, it's probably over 12 months now, I've been actually working with robotic mowers. I can set up an install so that I'm only going to get 1 or 2 notifications a month. And I've got installs there. We're working on the commercial site where I'm working, where I know that I'm going to have to attend to it on an almost daily basis because I've done a terrible install.
It's no different to a normal mower. It's going to let you down every now and again, but more often than not, you've just got to go there and press just reset or put it back in its docking station, and it's just got stuck in a weird spot, or it just was really wet when it was out mowing, so it overshot the boundary, or didn't quite pull up fast enough. So that happens quite a lot. We really try to steer clear of doing residential installs these days because they're the guys that both want to pay the least and expect the most out of them. But the problems the problem we have with the residential mowers is the guys that come in and looking at robots, they can't get a contractor to mow their property for them because it's simply like their property's too hard. It's too steep or too complicated, or it's just they're too hard to deal with. And they're the guys that come in looking for they're the residential customers we get coming to look for robots. And then robots are not, I tell them up front, robots are not going to work for you.
Because I've had a quote I put in for one that's really steep property. And it requires an all-wheel drive robot. And I'm looking at it going, you know what, that's actually pushing the limits of what the really steep slope robot can manage.
Yeah.
And I tested it. I went on site, I put one there and tested the slope and tested various factors. And I said to the customer, I really don't think this is a good idea to go ahead.
Yeah, well, one of the very last residential installs we did was with out at Merriweather Heights here in Newcastle. So down on the sort of on the hills coming up from the beach, I guess, at Nobby's there. He's a doctor, and he's a young doctor, a bit of a tech head, loves all his gizmos and gadgets and stuff like that. So we went there and quoted it, and it just got so complicated. Like we've installed, it's well out of spec because it's that steep. But he wanted it to dock outside of the yard area, so he wanted an automatic door to raise up and lower that he could drive, a little garage that he could drive through his side fence and into his we had to build a platform that was elevated above the ground. It's just like, oh, it's just not. And he has problems with it. Like, it's probably 2 or 3 times a week he'll have to go out there and reset it and send it back home again. But he's like, we were pretty upfront with him. We said, look, this is well out of spec. It's not designed to operate like this. We can try and force it to, but it's going to have issues. And he was okay with that at the time. And I don't hear from him. Like, what we monitor is whenever he's away, we monitor his mower for him and go and reset it when it has issues. But most of the time he looks after himself. But yeah, again, like residential stuff for us. And I want my gateway to the residential market for robots. I want to be through you guys, like the contractors I deal with, basically.
Yeah, so a contractor that looks after that lawn already, they take control of the robot that's going to be working on it.
They can go and install it and have it there and look after it and change the blades on it. And I don't know, they could sell it. I don't know, however they want to do it. But that's my preference as a dealer to how I want to approach the residential market. And I'm different from a lot of dealers. I know that a lot of dealers only deal with residential guys, and sort of their commercial guys make up a tiny bit of their business.
But a lot of dealers don't want to sell robots either, but they just want to stay in their shop and not go out and visit a property and deal with that.
It's a time and it's a training thing as well. Like, I'm the only one in our dealership that has stayed on top of all the training, and that's because every time there's a firmware update to the mowers, things change and things like that. Yeah. There's not enough business in robots for it to be a full-time job for me to have one full-time staff member who I train to go and do it all. It just isn't enough.
Yeah.
Like I said, I duck out of the shop probably 2 or 3 times a month, and that's all the time I dedicate to robots. Normally, like the ones we monitor, if there's a problem, I just ring the customer up and say, hey, the Spears North mower is stuck. Someone needs to go and reset it, and the next morning someone will go and reset it. So it's a bit of, I don't really run out there unless there's something obscurely wrong with it. I do actually have to run out to one of the Lake Mac Council ones tomorrow, though. It's having a weird issue. So
Fair. So look, we've spent a fair bit of time talking about robotic mowers, and I'm sure both of us could keep on talking about them.
I've recently been running the Ego Select Cut 52cm mower. It's available in a contractor's kit specifically for those of us running them all day. 2 10-amp-hour batteries and the turbocharger are all included in the contractor kit, bringing it in at $17.99. When mowing maintained lawns, you'll never run out of battery power as it recharges a 10-amp battery in 60 minutes. If you don't have access to charging while you work, you'll get through an average 8-hour residential day with 4 to 5 10-amp-hour batteries. This will vary significantly depending on the type of grass and frequency of cut. As you well know, there are many variables on residential jobs that affect the amount of time you spend mowing and how much load you put on the mower. This is the first battery-powered mower I've used that is a serious alternative to petrol-powered push or self-propelled 21-inch mowers. While there are now several options in this space, the Ego meets amazing value, and I'd rate it well above the consumer grade. In fact, I think it fills the prosumer niche in this category perfectly.
My background, you said we both had overlap between sort of tech and lawn industry. My background, I worked for Apple Computer for a while, back before they were making iPhones or anything like that. It was just purely computers. I worked for them.
That's a little while ago.
Yeah, I worked for them at the University of Adelaide when I was going there. I started uni after school, studying architecture, and then I got a job with Apple doing their on-site liaison to all of the campus computers and stuff like that, doing their tech support. And yeah, it was good to be able to work at uni, but so I never finished architecture.
Well,
got too involved in the family business. So.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's so that moved you from Adelaide up to here at some stage to start doing the business up here.
The business up there, Tink's up at Nambucca, were a dealer for I don't know exactly how was it. Just we had family living up in the Coffs Harbour region. We've been up there, holidayed a few times, loved the place, and so we went up there, and then just through the business insiders, we heard the dealership there was for sale, and Tinks, before, it's been around for a long time, that business. It was Macksville Machinery and Irrigation back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I think we bought it in 2001, I think.
Okay.
And it was called Tinks after someone who was one of the proprietors originally. He was Tinkler, I think was his last name, not related to
Okay.
old mate, but
Yep.
not related to Nathan Tinkler. But yeah, it's a and so we just kept the name because it was really quite adaptable. It didn't paint us into any corner. It wasn't like
Yeah.
you're specifically a mower shop or a chainsaw shop or an irrigation shop. But just yeah.
Being already known in a regional area like that, it's good to keep the name, keep it the
Yeah,
association.
it's a nice, simple, short name. Doesn't mean anything to anyone, but you can use it to do lots of different stuff, and we do. So it's good.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, so you grew from that shop to running 3 shops now, and you've got a fairly diverse range of products. I mean, if we focus more on what's interesting for the lawn mowing contractors, your Newcastle store is the one I'm familiar with, and you've got a diverse range of brands in there.
We do, and
like you're saying, most of them aimed at the commercial.
Yeah, and we've started another one this week, guys, which is interesting for us. We're Husqvarna and Honda, which I guess are our 2 staples. We're Cub Cadet commercial dealers for their steering wheel 0 turns. And we're also Hustler, and we have just become Hustler and Wright. So Wright was an interesting thing for us. We sort of inherited Cox up at Macksville, and then when they took over Wright, I'd already been talking to the New Zealand guys about having access to it. And when they took over Wright down here, I said I want Wright down there, but I don't necessarily want the Cox, and that was a bit of a kerfuffle for them, I think. But we've also just put Gravely on down here at Newcastle and other as well.
Okay.
So yeah, like we've had a long history with Power Up Lawn Care from when we were Hustler dealers, when Hustler was part of their distribution.
Yeah.
Really love working with those guys. They're great. They would love me to be a Bush Ranger dealer, but it's a very extensive brand, the Bush Ranger one. It treads all over every product category there is, basically.
That makes it hard for you to work with all of the other brands you're working with.
Yeah,
now.
Pretty much. It's one of the things, like, I don't like to go in and, like, I don't want to put my hand up and say, yeah, I'm going to be a Bush Ranger dealer, but I'm only going to keep like a subset of their products. Like, to me, it's like, if you're going to be a dealer for a brand, you keep everything.
Yep. Fair enough.
That's just my approach to it, because I don't know. There's not a lot of end customer loyalty to the dealer network, I think, these days. Like, you guys, and it's pretty hard to blame you guys. Like, you guys need a tool, you need it now, kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah.
So you pick up the phone and have you got one? No. Okay. It's not like I can have one for you in 2 days. It's like it was such an eye opener during all the stock shortages we've had over the last couple of years. Is that we were big enough to have a whole bunch of stock and move it around, and we were having people drive up from Mildura, from Shoalhaven. We've had one from way up north Queensland somewhere. You had to get a COVID pass and drive through the border all the way down to us to get a particular mower he was after. Oh, it was nuts.
Wow.
But we don't discount anything. We just sort of focus on having the stock.
Yeah.
Sort of beyond supplier supported programs like the Husky one. We try our hardest to stick to retail. Like, we're not out to take over the whole of Australia. I've watched so many dealerships try that.
Yeah.
And be so bad at it, and not.
Yeah.
It's like I said, when we bought Newcastle Chainsaws and Mowers, which is the one we bought back in 2017, and we wound up owning his Rutherford store as well. He was selling machines everywhere, and like, I'd hate to say, I don't think he was losing money, but he certainly wasn't making any money. But he was selling ride-on mowers to Tasmania. He was putting them on trucks to South Australia, and he was just crapping into every dealer's backyard across Australia, Basically, it was
he was focused on selling as many machines as possible, not worried about the profit margin on each machine.
You look at business like a big bucket. He had a big leaky bucket, but he was pouring water in the top of it that fast, so he didn't notice how leaky it was, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took. I know when I bought Newcastle Transit Mowers, I pissed off a lot of not just residential customers because I sort of stopped focusing on them so much, but some contractors as well. Because I let go of some key brands, like I let go of Stihl, I let go of Toro.
Yep.
Anyone that sort of wasn't interested in running the dealership group the way I wanted to run it, I just sort of waved goodbye to, and it cost a lot of money. I don't doubt it. I know, like Taylor's group around here, he was just a small shop selling Shindara and Echo, and now he's got bloody 5 Stihl dealerships around the place. But I do not envy him at all.
Yeah,
like Stihl commercial product is brilliant. Like I still think it's great gear. I don't have a lot. And it's possibly they've changed in the last 5 or 6 years since I stopped dealing with them, but I don't have a lot of respect for the way they run their group of. Well, they run their franchises, I guess.
Yeah.
Toro was a bit the same, I guess. Were to me, Toro gear is excellent gear. But the way they run their dealership network is questionable. Like their thing, they're just purely about growth over last year. And it was like after I took it on, I did want to hang on to Toro if I could, because like I said, I love the gear. It was good, and it was a huge part of the business. But as soon as I took it on, they said, well, okay, you can have the agency, but we're also putting on a guy at Foster, and we're also putting on a guy here, and then we're putting on another guy in the Central Coast, and then we're putting on another guy out here. And I said, okay, look, I'm not the same as the old guy. I'm not going to be selling mowers all over Australia. Okay. And so, but then they came to me after a year and said, well, why are your numbers down? I said, well, A, it's the first year of the worst drought we've just about ever had. And B, there's 5 new dealers around me who are selling the exact same thing I've got. So, of course, my numbers are down. I said, oh, well. And, yeah, at the end of the day, they just kept haranguing me about, why aren't you selling as much as Steve used to? And I said, well, look, run a dealer satisfaction survey and see how satisfied the rest of your Australian dealer network is that Steve's gone.
Yeah.
I think I made a lot of other Toro dealers quite happy. But
I remember going in to visit Steve back in the early days of my business, and I walked out after I spent an hour in there looking at what I wanted to buy and what he wanted to sell me were 2 different things, and I was like, yeah, that's not how it works. See you later.
You're one of the few that got out alive then, guys, because Steve he still is. He's an incredible salesman. He is.
Yeah, for sure.
But he lives on sales highs. But he's a great guy. But
that's all good and well if he's working with somebody who's a buyer.
Yeah.
But when he's working with a contractor, he's working with people who are 95% of us are technicians, and we're like, okay, I know what I want. Don't try and sell me something else.
You've generally already, and that has changed over the years as well. I can't put my finger on it quite, but most people they've already decided what machine they want and what configuration they want it in, and it's a matter. It really comes down to have you got one, and then after that fact, it comes down to, well, can you look after me as a contractor and
can you give me the after sales service that matches it?
Yeah, and that's sort of where I think that's where dealers who want the commercial business really have to focus is on after sales service. Like I said, we are deliberately nowhere near the cheapest by way of our service department. Because the guys who go out there and try and be the cheapest, they rack up service queues like 6, 8, 10 weeks long in the peak season.
Yes.
And they don't prioritize their service queues or anything like that. They just go, if you drop it off now, you're going to get it back in 10 weeks. Doesn't matter who you are.
And that doesn't work for contractors.
No.
I mean, it doesn't work for anybody, but
it doesn't work for anyone. By setting our sort of price up there, we don't really get that. Like, we blow out at the very worst of it last season. I think we blew out to about 10 weeks. No, 2 weeks. Sorry,
2 weeks. Okay,
2 weeks. We had some outliers, and it was just because of parts availability. But there's just like when
Yeah.
something weird went wrong, and it wasn't just when something weird went wrong. It was often when something common went wrong, because what would happen was, like we carry enough spare part stock we carry about 3 to 4 months of spare part stock in our own little area, and distributors in Australia probably carry the same, maybe a bit more. So when the supply chain constraints happened and everything went to shit, like all the fast moving parts ran out quite quickly.
Yeah.
So if there was a machine with a common problem, or if there was a belt that was used on lots and lots of different machines, belts were a bad one. Like a lot of really common
Imagine
belts became
belts and
impossible.
blades.
Yeah, yeah, and you can tell like you can tell as soon as the OEM, like the brand name, are running out of a belt, or running low, you can tell because the aftermarket guys sell out in about 2 seconds. Like the switched on dealers will just go in there, like they'll get onto stands, or they go to GR and go, I'll have 50,
Yep.
and just sort of stock right up.
Yep.
But that was that real sort of that hoarding kind of behavior we saw during COVID. It happened with spare
Yeah.
parts as well.
Yep.
So like fast moving parts, it's a real hassle, and it still is at the moment with some brands, especially. A
Yeah.
lot of them had long ranging plans already in place to move spare parts warehouses, like Briggs and Stratton and Honda. Honda are only just wrapping up theirs now. That's been fun.
Yep.
Briggs and Stratton one was a complete disaster. So they
Yes.
already had no supply of spare parts, and then they had a whole brand new warehouse with all new stuff, and yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, they lost a lot of respect in the last 2 or 3 years in Australia.
Yeah, well, it was really just a lot of bad timing, basically.
Yep.
It wasn't their fault. But yeah,
Yep. I think the
Right.
other one that really caught everyone by surprise was total battery shortage, because everybody was just moving over. All contractors were finally making the switch to go, all right, I really need a battery-powered blower or a
Yeah,
battery-powered hedge trimmer, and couldn't get batteries from pretty
yeah.
much every brand.
It was a lot, and it was Ego didn't have a problem. A, because they make their
Yeah.
own batteries, but B, because
Yep.
they're happy to use cheaper battery cell configurations and stuff like that. They don't have the brand reputation, I guess, that still Husqvarna have, where they're just unwilling to slap their brand on cheap batteries that only last a couple of years.
Yeah.
And look, a couple of years out of contractor use, I think if you get that out of an Ego battery, you've done pretty well. I said their batteries are great value in terms of capacity for dollars and stuff like that. I love Ego gear, especially their commercial stuff. It's great gear, but it isn't at the moment. Talk to me in a month or two, but at the moment, it's not a quality proposition against Husqvarna or Still AP series. Still have got quite a range of gear, but
Yeah.
or against definitely not against Pelenc, who we also
Yeah.
deal with.
Yep.
Totally different part of the value food chain, I think.
Yeah.
But it's definitely got their place though. So
I'm interested to see what the new Ego commercial range looks like once it gets here.
yeah, look, I've put eyes on it. I haven't played with it or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've obviously
I got to
got
see some of it up in
yeah,
Queensland a couple of
yeah,
weeks ago, but
yeah. You got to see it, but I don't think they were doing batteries in. They weren't doing power demos or anything, were they? Or
I didn't have a powered demo myself. I don't know.
yeah,
I
No,
was so busy that day, I didn't get
I
to
think that
observe everything.
I think from memory that's something BJ's working on by way of insurance for the next one he
Yep.
organises anyway, is to be actually allowed to have hands-on demos for gear.
Yeah.
Yeah, which obviously would be excellent,
Yep.
but dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on what you're doing, right? So if you're talking about standing on a stander or sitting on a zero turn and running around, no blades, it's probably a good rule anyway.
Yeah, I
But
guess it's one of those things where even though it's not a business, the sort of contractor gathering kind of event, as far as work cover is concerned, that's a business.
yeah.
Because yeah,
Oh,
and so
yeah.
they're even when we go to trade days with Husqvarna or Honda or anyone like that, if before we can start a chainsaw up, we've all got to be we've got to put on chaps, we've got to put on helmets with eye visions and gloves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Husqvarna can't let even their dealers who have been in the game for 20 years power up a saw without all the safety stuff on. And I totally get it. It's annoying, but I've also see a lot of customers walking in with 8 fingers and limps. So, yeah.
I've had at least one employee say, "Can I grab the chainsaw?" And I'm like, "No, you're not trained." No.
Yeah, and look, that's something Husqvarna are really good at. They've got induction manuals for everything. I don't know if still would have to have something similar. But yeah, for all their products, they've got a little operator induction, just a thing you can do in the website, and that's free for anyone to use. Yeah, so it's for anyone who's got employees, it's an important thing, and it's not a bad thing to do yourself either, really. So.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, there's a big difference between grabbing a chainsaw and going out and using it, and actually being aware of the sharp end and what the doing some official training, like you say, even if it's the Husqvarna online training that you can do.
Yeah, just the inductions. I mean, you can do. I don't know. I think Atrius, do training locally here. I don't know. Up the coast there, SES do all the training days and things like that. If you want to.
Well, I've done SES training, so that's where I did it.
Yeah, and that's a fairly decent sort of course, I think. Scares a bit of respect into you usually.
It does.
Yeah,
it certainly does. And then seeing it come up in the news every now and then when somebody has a chainsaw injury, it's like,
yeah. Look, it's funny. Like the guys. I mean, it's not funny. It's horrifying. But the guys that get injured by chainsaws are the guys that have been using them for 20 years, and they've sort of lost. Yeah, they've lost. They haven't lost respect so much as overgained confidence. I think. Yeah, and
the one
generally not the new guys that hurt themselves because they I don't know, they've probably watched too many horror movies, but they know what a chainsaw can do if you bury yourself in your leg. But one of the more memorable things I did was that I can't remember which vendor it was. It may have been Still back in the day when I was dealing with them. They had a thing where human flesh is like the consistency of a bar of soap. Like that's about, and it is literally how like a chainsaw cuts through a bar of soap about the same speed it'll cut through your leg.
Oh, so wow.
Reasonably tricky. So they had the big bar of soap there, like this big log of soap thing, and we're all dropping chainsaws into it to seeing how fast it would cut in. And yeah, it can happen like that. It's just it doesn't take much of a nick.
Yeah. Well, I've had a chainsaw injury myself, and I've still got all my fingers and toes. But it could have been a lot worse.
I've seen a few corkers sort of make you scratch your head, but yeah.
Well, I tell everyone I did the chainsaw training, and then I broke every rule in the book, and I paid the price.
Yeah. Well,
but the one that doesn't surprise me,
a pair of cut-proof pants makes pretty good sense.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not expensive.
The one that never ceases to amaze me, but you see people posting on LMCA about this all the time, and I've seen other people talk about it, is the hedge trimmer injuries.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like worse than a chainsaw in a lot of ways.
Well, that's like, it's a lot more precise than a chainsaw. You're going to take your finger off.
The one I've noticed quite common, and I actually saw this, I was out riding my motorbike with a group one day, and a guy said, I've got to leave, my wife just cut herself with a hedge trimmer. And I asked a question. I said, what kind of hedge trimmer was it? Was it a pole trimmer or a hand one? And it wasn't the pole trimmer. And I said, she's gone and grabbed the bar like it was a pole, hasn't she? And he said, I don't think she'd do that. And then 5 minutes later, he says, yeah, that's what she did.
Yeah, and look, there's one of the best things about the battery-powered hedge trimmers is that the better brands out there generally you've got dual triggers. So you got one on the hand, one on the handlebar, and then one on the rear handle, and it won't work unless both trimmers buttons are held down. So you shouldn't. I mean, you can still lay the bar into your legs, I guess, but you shouldn't be able to power it up with your fingers in the bar. You can still hurt yourself leg-wise or other operators and things like that. But yeah, it's a lot harder with a battery-powered one, a good branded battery-powered one, than it is with a petrol one.
Yeah. I think the most recent injury I saw with a hedge trimmer on LMCA, I think it was a bicep.
Hit their arm. I don't know.
I was uncertain, but I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a bicep.
Okay. There's a few questionable body part shots that show up from time to time. It's pretty hard to tell what they are.
Whenever BJ posts a body shot, it's like, oh, that's questionable. But
Jesus. No, you can guarantee what it is when BJ posts one. Yeah.
Yep.
I think you threw a tick shot up the other day. I think I don't know where that was.
Yes. It was safe for work, that picture.
Safe for work, was it? Okay. That was good to know.
Yes, was definitely safe for work. It was around my knee, but anyway, you've got a curve and a hairy bit.
Yeah, it was a questionable looking photograph. Anyway, I'll take your word for it.
I had to think about it for a second. I was like, oh, where was it? So that I can make sure it sounds legit. Yeah. But so we've covered quite a bit in terms of what you do running your business. Tell me I think we've already covered some of your pet peeves about various different things, haven't we?
Some, I guess. I don't know. I guess one of my pet peeves, I guess, would be new contractors or guys new to the industry, sort of walking in and expecting trade discounts on everything and expecting to get looked after like a long-established contract and stuff like that. And I guess what dealers don't really do a great job of communicating to you guys is that if we give you 10% off something, like if we give you 10% off a mower, we've sort of got that's money that's gone for us. Like we're not getting that back. Like the mower is still going to earn you the same amount of money, and like it's money that's gone for us. We need to have some sort of assurance in our head, I guess, that by looking after you, you're going to come back for another one. And sort of if we give 10% off, we need to suddenly sell twice as many of that machine in a given year.
Yeah.
Just to make the same sort of dealer margin we would normally make if we didn't discount it at all.
Yeah.
And so like for established contractors, for guys that take the game seriously, like more than happy to look after guys with contractor type pricing on gear, not a problem. But show your dealers the love, like build the relationship, get in there and think of that them if when they offer you that discount, that's basically them investing in your business. We need that's them saying, well, okay, we need your business. We need your business to succeed so that you can come back and buy some more gear. I mean, that's the way we make our living. We don't make any bones about it normally. We're here to sell gear and to repair gear when you guys thrash it, basically, and to tell you when you've gone too far with that one and you need a new one. We don't do a lot of regular service maintenance kind of work. We sell a lot of service kits, like you guys do. Obviously, do a lot of servicing of your own gear.
A lot of contractors will do their own basic service. It's only bring it to you when we can't fix it.
Yeah, and that's reasonable. That's what we expect these days. We'd love to be doing, like, if I could have an apprentice mechanic on, if I could find one, and he was just there doing like service kind of work. Yeah, but it's not it just makes sense for you guys. You guys need something to do on a wet day. Yeah. It's your time. Your time is your money. It's not worth paying a dealer to do something you can do for yourselves.
Yeah,
and like we'll even for guys that aren't that techie qualified, like YouTube's a great place to start. But we can go over the basics of maintenance and stuff with customers. We're more than happy to teach people how to maintain their gear. It's just the repair side of it that we would prefer you left to us if possible.
Yep.
Yeah. Once you've broken it properly, we're more than happy to fix it. But yeah. Or if it's under warranty or anything like that, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a pet peeve. And I know it's not. It is another sort of peeve of mine when, like, if a machine is under warranty and something goes wrong with it, bring it into us. Like, if you do try and fix it yourself, maybe you can make it work for the rest of the day. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, but all
probably
it really
avoid the warranty.
Oh, look, you can't. Australia's got massively good consumer protection laws. It's pretty hard to avoid a warranty in Australia. But it does really draw out the process with the OEM in terms of getting approvals and things done. It's a pain in the ass. You get stuff in the workshop. I'm trying to think of a good example. I can't really come. No, nothing's really springing to mind at the moment. But yeah, they just affected their own repairs and then brought it in for warranty. And it's like, why is that bit got like a metal strap riveting it together and stuff like that? Oh, you have to keep using it. And they're going like, well, if you bought it when it fixed, you could have fixed it. Now you're going to have to replace that bit. But those two bits aren't going to be under warranty because he's drilled holes in them and run rivets through there. And it just the time that dealers put into warranty claims, approvals, and things like that is generally not time that the OEMs pay us for. Once a remediation's been decided, like I said, well, this is how you're going to fix it. Like a particular part will come with a particular time allowance. Like if it's if we say we need to change a carburetor over or something like that, it's 20 minutes. That's what time they give you to install a new carburetor and tune it. But none of the diagnosis time or the emailing back and forward time. It's just it's not paid for by anyone. Other than I have to say Pellenc there have probably been the best at that, and they're not petrol gear, but they pay you for whatever time it takes to effect a repair. So it's good.
Okay.
They've been quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think most brands, like you say, they're not going to do that. They're going to pay you for the amount of time it takes to install the part to replace it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So it's
despite
the fact they want you to tear down an engine and send photos and write emails and all this sort of stuff and do the whole back and forth dance, they'll then decide, well, this is the part you've got to replace, and the book says that part you get 20 minutes for doing this part. So it's like, even though it's taking you 3 hours to get there, you're going to get paid 20 minutes labour. So it's real bloody nightmare. Warranty.
And they don't pay you to listen to the contractor whinge about the brand for half an hour as well.
No, definitely not. No.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a frustration I have as a dealer, I guess, is the whole warranty side of thing. And it's because we're not it's making up more and more a percentage of dealers' work as well, warranty work, because we're not seeing that service work anymore. A lot of people are doing it for themselves. And because once something's out of warranty, generally speaking, it's sort of disappearing out of our exposure, I guess. Yeah. So most of the breakdown kind of stuff we see, unless it's been dropped off a trailer or run into by something else, which happens, or run over by something else, a lot of the repair work we do is warranty type work. So it's bit of a frustration for us. But
I guess that dynamic would change if you were doing more residential tools, because you'd have more of them would come back for service.
It's very rare that someone will bring something in and it turns out to be just a service. Like they'll say, "Can I just bring my mower in for a service?" And they go, "Yeah, but what's actually wrong with it? Like, why isn't it running?" Because it's 9 out of 10 times it won't even start, and they go, "I just need a service." And you go,
"Yeah, of course.
No, it's broke." So we don't. Yeah, like I said, we don't do a lot of servicing work. We do a lot of repair work, because mostly by the time it's so far gone that it doesn't even start anymore, it could be a bloody $700 or $800 repair on a ride-on mower, and then they don't really feel like paying for a $400 or $500 service on top of that. So so a lot of our the whole maintenance side of things really not done, I guess, unless you do it yourself these days. At least in us. I know. Like, I'm not pretending to speak on behalf of every dealership. This is just how we work. Yeah. My guys would much rather be repairing stuff than doing oil changes anyway, so it suits us fine.
Yep.
They hate doing the same thing over and over again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we're sitting about an hour and a half at the moment.
Okay, that's not too bad.
So in terms of what we've covered, I'm just looking at, is there anything else that we should cover in terms of dealer-contractor relationships?
Well, I make it fairly well known on there that I'm all for guys building relationships with their local dealers, because you're not, like I said, when you ride on mower brakes, they're the person who you're going to be trusting to get it up and running in as short a time as possible, basically. And sometimes, like, I would love it if there was one particular brand that made the best version of every product in every category. Then there would really only be one brand out there. But there's not. We've got more brands here than anywhere, I think. And dealers can't carry every single brand. So, like, my advice is that sometimes you've got to make a compromise on the tools you work with. I think. I think contractors are better off having a strong relationship with one dealer and making a compromise, saying that, look, I have to get a Husky backpack blower, I can't get a Stihl BR800, or I have to do that. Like, if you want to me, I think a BR800 is a better blower than the Husqvarna one, the current, as they stand at the moment. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a Husqvarna one, though. It's pretty bloody good. It would, If you wanted to have the best tool of everything, though, you'd have this from that brand, this from that brand, this from that brand. You'd be running around between 10 different dealers whenever anything went wrong. And time is something you guys, that is your commodity, time as a contractor. You can't make any more of it.
See, a lot of contractors will pursue that. They will go, all right, I want the best blower, and then I want the best hedge trimmer, and I want the best chainsaw, I want the best whip stepper, and they'll end up with 5 different brands. And I've done that myself. But if you look at what the councils do, the council go to one shop and they say, I want 10 of this and 10 of this and 10 of this and 10 of this, and they buy all from the same shop so they can bring everything back to you.
Well, yeah, usually. They do a lot of, like, we do a fair bit with the local councils and stuff that we deal with, and there's a bit of that goes on, but the last few years have been a lot more interesting just because of availability of stuff. Like,
true.
The local council, they've got some Ecotech, sorry, not Ecotech, is it the green ones, or
the mean green?
Yeah, sorry, they got a couple of mean greens, they got a couple of John Deere out fronts, they've got some Kubotas, they've got some Jacobsons, they've got a bit of bloody, they just got whatever they could get in the last few years.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
they've been switching up between, because traditionally in our area they would have gone for a Kubota out front and maybe a Kubota zero turn as well. But now they are going, okay, if there's a battery powered option, it checks an extra box on that that tender.
They've got whole job roles there dedicated to making sure that everyone's buying the most environmentally friendly things and things like that. And look, I don't know. I think it does make some sense there. I don't know if it's the best use of ratepayers' money yet for them to be paying that much up front for battery powered stuff.
Not yet.
Especially the way they drive their gear. Like, I think commercial battery stuff, there's commercial battery ride-ons, like Jacobson do some brilliant stuff. Gravely, who have just taken on, I think, you were out at the demo day, weren't you?
Yes.
We had that out there. That's a really sweet looking machine, but it's a $55,000 ride-on mower.
Yeah.
And it's the battery version of a sort of $19,000.
Yeah, that's right.
Petrol version. So, like, is spending 2.5 times as much on that good use of ratepayers' mower? I don't happen to think so just yet. I don't know. To me, that stuff, like battery commercial ride-ons, they come into their own where you are selling your time hourly because of the reliability gains and the maintenance gains and stuff like that. Like, if you're not having to schedule down time to do a day's worth of maintenance on the piece of equipment. Literally, your wear part are the blades. There is nothing else.
I think that also goes to being an owner-operator as well, because if you've got 10 employees, or particularly, know, the council who has, who knows what, with the employee running over all sorts of rubbish on it, the reliability on a three times the price machine, you're not going to get the full lifespan out of it because it's getting trashed.
Well, see, like the council aren't out there selling time. They're not. They've got a set amount of staff, and if a particular piece of equipment isn't working because it's getting serviced, then that's fine as far as I'm concerned. They can they can have that guy doing something else. They're not out there billing their time hourly. It doesn't it doesn't make a bottom line difference to them if one of their machines is out for service. It does to contractors who are out there selling their hours.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you've got a ride-on mower and it needs a bloody oil change every 50 hours, it needs filters changed every 100 hours, it needs belts done every couple of 100 hours, you might be looking at you might be looking at 20 or 30 hours of maintenance time a year on that bit of gear.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's 20 or 30 hours of your time you're not getting to sell.
But the other factor there is that if you're talking about the $18,000 Gravely, you probably get 1/3 the life out of the machine too. So that you get the EV and you get 3 times the life out of the machine. So the cost of ownership equals out over the fact that you own it for longer, and then you get the lower maintenance on top of that.
Look, that's a simple truth about almost any tool we deal with, and it's something that not many people will believe when they're first buying a machine. But I tell them, if you're going to buy a $20,000 mower, over its 4,000 to 5,000 hours of life, and that's if you use it from now new till it's absolutely a write-off.
Yeah,
you're going to spend that 20 grand again.
Yep.
Just on blades, on belts, on oil change, on filters, on maintenance, on lost time. You're going to spend that 20 grand again. You are. That's how.
Yeah.
That's roughly how things work out at the minute. It used to be a bit cheaper, I think. But yeah, it's roughly how it works out. Is that if it's a 10 grand mower, you're going to spend 10 grand over its life. If it's 20, you're going to spend 20. Where that breaks down is if you buy a residential machine, like if you buy a $5,000 mower, you're expecting it to last you 4,000 hours, you're going to spend double it. So it's a bit of a trap, but it is something that people do need to budget for. Is that like if you buy a 20 grand mower, you need to have the work for it, because it's not just costing you. It does cost you money just to have it sitting there not working. But but for every hour you work, you're probably looking at. I've never actually done a full breakdown on it, but I reckon if it's not costing you sort of, and this isn't including fuel, but if it's not costing you probably $4 or $5 an hour in terms of maintenance on that mower per hour mowed, I'd eat my hat, I reckon.
Yeah. So I would agree with you on that. I think over the life of a mower, you add up the costs of maintenance. So the petrol powered mower is going to have your oil changes, your belts, your hydro service, your standard service items, all your spark plugs and filters, all those sorts of things getting changed. And for me, some of those items can be serviced as frequently as every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just because it gets that many hours on it in 2 weeks. And sometimes it might be 6 months in between a service, but when it's working hard, every 2 weeks. So it adds up pretty quickly.
It does. It adds up more than most people realise, because there's not a lot of people out there who track the costs on individual machines and things like that. I think you've probably all got your equipment pool and your repair line and your balance sheet at the end of the year, and you're not really tracking where it all goes. But I can tell you with some certainty after 20 years of keeping my eye on it that it's a 20 grand mower, you're going to spend 20 grand on it. And that's over. And that sort of 4,000 or 5,000 hour figure for me, that's what I look at as a commercial machine. That's about how long they've designed it to last for, if it's maintained to schedule. If you don't maintain it to schedule, you can shorten that by a couple of thousand hours.
Well, I look at it as a contractor. I go, okay, I want to get 1,000 hours out of that machine. So if it's a 4,000 hour machine, then I want to be looking to sell it somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 hours, and usually closer to the 1,000 hour mark. I could run it to 2,000 hours quite comfortably, but after 2,000 hours, the cost of ownership starts to go up.
Yes, yeah. And
so if I sell it,
it's not an even spread. Like when I say a 20 grand machine, you're going to spend 20 grand on it over its life. It's not going to be 4 grand the first year, 4 grand the next year, 4 grand the next year. There's a definite ramping curve in terms of cost of keeping a piece of equipment running. But when you run something through to the end of its service life, you just you're spending the upfront cost again. And
Yeah.
when you swing that back to the battery thing and me going, is it worth it for councils to be doing it yet? Like, maybe it is, because they tend to run their stuff into the ground. Like, they're not trading their stuff out. They're just running it until it's dead. That's the way councils work. So the big sort of unknown with battery mowers is that at that sort of 3,000 hour mark, is it just a new set of batteries and everything's back to good as new? I don't know.
According to Mean Green, those batteries should be good for 11 to 12,000 hours. So in that regard, Mean Green should be still serviceable for a lot longer after that if you make sure that the bearings and motors and blades and everything are doing what they're supposed to do.
And look, to me, that could well be true. Maybe they'll get 12,000 hours of operating life out of the battery, so I don't know. But will the rest of the mower, like, to me, that's a classic case of, I don't know, like, what's a good example? Like, people were putting, like, really good, like a Kawasaki FX engine. It's like they don't put FX Kawasaki's on consumer grade mowers for a reason. Yeah. They don't put Honda GXV engine, that GXV engine, they don't put it on their domestic machines for a reason.
Yeah.
That engine's made to last 4,000 hours.
Yeah.
The whole homeowner mower as a thing, that's made to last maybe 8, maybe 900 hours. It's made to last a homeowner 15 years who are doing sort of 50, 60 hours of mowing a year tops. That's there.
I've mentioned this with my walkers. I've had 3 Walker MBs at the moment. And the first one I sold to my older brother, I did 1,100 hours on that walker, and then I sold it to him, and he has had it since 2018, and he's done 100 hours on it.
100 hours in 5 years?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the sort of difference that it makes. Like, I can do 50 hours in 2 weeks. Typically speaking, so not always doing 50 hours in 2 weeks, but I will typically speaking, I will do 1,000 hours in about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and look, that's fairly typical, I would say, for a Honda. You're talking for a ride-on mower now, or you're talking for your walker?
So we're talking 0 turns, yeah.
Yeah, so that's fairly typical of someone with a good mixture, I guess, doing around about that 1,000 hours a year. 1,000 hours over 3 years, so 300, 350 hours a year. Yeah.
Yep.
I'd say you're probably right in the middle of the bell curve kind of thing. We've got guys that purely do acreage mowing. They smash that. They would smash that to pieces. They'd be doing sort of 1,500 hours, 2,000 hours a year.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So, but they're sitting on the mower 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, just bashing out acres kind of thing. So but it's the whole cost value proposition of going battery on a ride on, for me, for contractors, I think if you have got a full-time job for that ride on mower, I think yes, at the moment it definitely makes sense. Even at their price of 50, I'm just trying to look it up. They start at sort of just under 53K.
So this is for the Gravely EV 0
that's
turn.
Gravely EV. So
and I think that's a 54-inch, yeah?
That's a 48. They do 52s and 60s as well. And they do them inside or rear discharge. So you can sort of see who they're aiming for with these things, really. Basic councils. So they range
by comparison, I think the Mean Green is going to be about $15,000 more expensive than the Gravely.
Yeah. And look, the difference is the Mean Green has built-in batteries which are a higher capacity.
Yes, they do have more capacity built in.
Yep. So the Gravely's come with 16 kilowatt hours worth of batteries, which is still a fair chunk of batteries. I think there's 6. I think each battery is $6,000 or something like that. And look, for private contractors and stuff like that, they're going to mow probably a day or 2, if not 3, on a charge. But the whole point of the Gravely is you can take those batteries out and you can charge them off the mower, or you can swap into, or you can drive around on 2 batteries while you've got 2 on charge.
Yeah.
So you can just hot swap them, so you can half your rate, but you've always got charge because you've got 2 charging and 2 in the mower. So it's something you can't do on the Mean Greens. So it's a bit of a difference. If
you've got access to 240 volt power, then you can be charging on the run.
Yeah, so you think of the Gravely's more like a proper commercial end version of the Egos, I guess. You can take those batteries out. You can't slot the Gravely batteries onto any other tools because they weigh about 20 kilos each. But
I think it was more than that, actually.
I don't know, but you can cancel your gym membership if you're swapping batteries more than a few times a day, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, the fact that swappable is a selling point for the Gravely, I think. So.
Yep.
Yeah. The fact that they can.
For sure.
Yeah. So they come with 4, and you can have 2 in them and 2 off them, or you can have all 4 on them if you want to just run it till it's dead. Or it's it's a different way of thinking. But I think I was I get back to who these are for. At the moment, they're really targeting them at councils because they've got the impetus, they've got the people pushing them from the top, say you got to go green, and that's the angle. That's where they're finding their most success for these guys. But I think in terms of a commercial value proposition, I can't see it for council use, but I can see it for the contractor. But the contractor has got to have work for the machine.
And I think that applies to contractors at any level, right? So you get a new contractor starting out and they want to spend $20,000 or $15,000 on a brand new zero turn when they haven't got work.
Yeah, it makes me nervous.
They come to me and ask me about that, and I'm like, well, what work have you got in the line at the moment, and how many jobs have you got? And I'm like, okay, we'll start with a machine that's affordable for that kind of work, and once you've got a busy schedule, then go to the best machine possible for that kind of work. And
the best way to start up, I think today, the best way to start up is with, if you've got that sort of money where you want to go and drop, I want to get this, I want to get a ride, I want to get this. So you can get pretty much a full package of Pellant gear for about 12, 13 grand. That's a mower, a blower, a hedge trimmer, a pole saw, everything you need other than a ride-on mower. It's only around 12 or 13K, and that's a couple of batteries in there. That does everything. And then when you want to improve your efficiency, like when your books are so full that you're busting at the seams that you need to find more time on your day, that's when you go to something like a 32-inch stander, because you can still get that onto all the properties that you've been on. And if you suddenly find yourself enjoying the ride-on work a lot more, you trade up from the 32-inch stander to either a sit-on or a bigger stander or something like that. I'll be honest, like we sell a lot of 32-inch standers, but I reckon most guys only stick with them for 12 to 18 months because they get them because they're moving out of push mowing or they want to increase their efficiency of their run, basically. Yeah. And they find that they just like ride-on work more because it's easier. And so, like, eventually they'll just swing their client base away from customers that are suitable for push mowing towards customers that are suitable for ride-ons.
And I'd see this come up all the time, and I've heard you talk about this occasionally too, in terms of the turnover rate with 32s.
You'll see it on the LMCA, like there's all these quite low hour 32-inch stand-ons that pop up every now and again.
Yeah.
And it's either guys that have overinvested from the get-go and didn't have the work for the machine, or it's guys that have swung their business really quickly and really successfully towards ride-on work.
Yep.
And that 32-inch format machine is so new to the Australian market that it's sort of like a gateway drug for the guys that have only been push mowing up until now or doing walk-behind stuff. It's sort of a gateway drug for them into the more ride-on kind of work. It's definitely a stepping stone machine. But it's a great one. Like if you've already got an established customer base who are suitable for running around with walk-behind mowers, but you want to get more efficiency or you want to change the customer base, that machine can do everything you're doing now. Yeah. Probably save you 20%, 25% of your time and open you up to other customers as well.
Yeah. So, I see the 32-inch machine or even the 30-inch walk-behind machines, they have a pretty limited customer base that they work well for. So if you start out with a basic package with a walk-behind mower that's 21 inches or somewhere around there, typically speaking, you can do any of the smallish jobs. So if you're non-residential jobs that are down to sort of 50 metres or 100 metres of grass, you with that 21-inch mower out, off you go. And if you're really pushing the limits, you might go up to a half acre or 3/4 acre property with that 21-inch machine. You're going to be feeling it. But once you switch to a 32-inch machine, then you're limited to where you can fit it. And you're limited by the fact that once you get up over an acre, they're not a very efficient machine.
No, they're not for big acreages. And like I said, it's a very definite stepping stone machine. For people that are doing small resis, and when I say small, I'm talking like you may be sort of 750, 800 square meters of turf on a job. So up to that, which is quite big for some areas, but small for some, I guess. But for the people that are doing those, where the mowing part of a job is a hard slog, 32 inches are great.
Yeah,
because they will go
as long as they've got good access.
Yeah, as long as
good access for those means putting a Catch Pro on the side of them most of the time too, because most of those jobs where you use that, the customers want the grass caught.
Yes, if they want, on smaller yards like that, yes, they definitely want grass caught. So whether you go for a Catch Pro or you go for one of the industry solutions like Wright do their own ones. I think pretty sure Gravely do ones for theirs. The Catch Pro is great. Is a great product because it's an aluminium box. It's lightweight and it's durable. It's great. Like all the OEM ones you get, you're going to see. Like I know Bobcat have got one. I know Wright do them, and I know Gravely do them. But they're fabric bag over steel frames, so they're even lighter than a Catch Pro. But it's just another catcher bag you've got to replace twice a year, basically. So
it's a niche product. The Catch Pro does a great job, but I think once you go to a Catch Pro on a 32-inch machine, then your machine's twice that width, which means you can only cut with the left side of the machine up against your garden edge or your fence or whatever else you're doing, and you've got to take the Catch Pro off when you're going through the gate.
Yeah, look, you got to Yes. Yeah, look, it's not a great solution, but it is what customers expect. So that's the right solution, isn't it? If that's what they expect.
Well, in some cases, it's the best solution, even if it's not great.
Yeah.
So but it does have a limited target market for a contractor that's going to fit a particular type of niche.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, and it's really like where we see the 32s going successfully for us is with those guys. It's with the bigger, expansive lawns, like with the crap access, or that you have been doing with your Honda 21 or your Toro Pro or something like that. And it's where I don't know. It's generally not with the solo operators, the 21s. It tends to go into the guys working in pairs, because you find that most of those guys, one guy will be doing edging and hedging or something like that, where the guy does the mowing. Yeah. And where there's a real work imbalance, where the grass mowing's taking 3 times as long as the guy who's running around doing the edges or the hedging or anything like that, that's when that 32 has been most successful, I guess, for us in those sort of situations. There are plenty of solo guys using 32s, but I think for the where we've seen it most successful, has been in small teams, like 2-man teams, I guess.
Yeah, and I know the 2-man teams have come under a bit of scrutiny on LMCA in terms of their efficiency loss. But when you're running a 32-inch machine like that, then it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Yeah, look, and it's not, you can't just add another guy to your team and suddenly be 100% more efficient. That's not how it works. It's like, no.
It's like I now run 2 mechanics in my workshop. I used to run 4. I book out more hours per day now than I did when we had 4 mechanics in the workshop, because there's a lot less standing around and talking. There's a lot less team. I don't know, a lot less getting in each other's way. It's not how it works. A single solo operator can be hellishly efficient. Like you start putting on employees, and the trying to compete with those guys doing $50 lawns is just not even on the cards anymore.
No.
But where 2-man teams becomes a problem is where there's a division of labor problem, and it's normally it normally is like the one guy's doing the mowing and the other guy's doing everything else. And if the mowing is taking significantly longer than doing everything else, then the other guy's standing around twiddling thumbs for 15 or 20 minutes. So
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
where your efficiency loss comes in, and you've suddenly got twice as many labour hours in terms of non-billables when you're moving between jobs as well and things like that. So you're paying two wages when you're driving, not one. So it's
Yep.
they've got issues, small two-man teams, but it's
Yeah.
it's
I think
really
that becomes an issue on certain types of property. So if you've got properties which are well suited to balance with two people and keeping them both working for most of the time, and the drive distance is fairly short, so you've got good route density, love that word,
yes, yeah.
then
Look,
it
it's
works.
the more people there are on a crew, the tighter route you need. Absolutely, like
Yeah.
you cannot have like if you got one guy, if it's half an hour between jobs for one guy, that's but
Yep.
if there's two guys in the truck, well, that's an hour's worth of wages. If there's four, that's 2 hours worth of wages. It's
Yeah. That's
it
it.
adds up. The inefficiency stacks up. It's sort of multiplies. So
Definitely. But I've found for the type of work I do, and I think a lot of Australians fall into a similar situation to me, rather than having a 32-inch stander, a 42-inch zero turn has been a really efficient choice for me.
it's the 42-inch Zeds are a weirdly Australian thing. If you believe all the manufacturers and the importers, like 42 inches, it's not even a consideration in the States. Like they don't even think about it.
And I think that
it's in some of
comes.
the ranges. Yeah,
I
it's
think
in
it
some
comes
of
down to the property sizes that we have in the suburban sprawl in Australia. You have a lot of places where there's quarter acre properties, and quarter acre properties usually have a slightly bigger gate than your typical 400 to 800 square metre blocks. So once you get out to quarter acre, they usually got a bigger gate, can fit a 42-inch machine through there, and a lot of those properties you can mulch without worrying about catching.
I've always, like a lot of that's true, but I've always put the popularity of 42 inches down to the whole 6x4 trailer thing, which
Yeah,
is it's your entry level trailer, and
true.
you can't. That's the biggest mower you can get on a 6x4 is a 42 inch. So
Yeah, I
that's
reckon you can
yeah.
squeeze a 48-inch in if
If
you're
you want to
really
scrape the
keen.
paint off and take the flap off, yeah, you're probably good. But yeah, I mean, a 4 foot wide trailer is 48 inches on the inside. So
Yeah.
unless your mower manufacturer's fibbing to you about your actual cut, normally with a 48 mower, you've got sort of probably an inch either side at least
Yep.
of deck material and flaps and whatnot. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
the 40, 42, 46, definitely in my stores that deal with the residential markets, 42 and 46 are very popular.
Yeah.
Because again, they're not interested in really how fast they're getting the job done.
Yeah.
They're often customers that live sort of, I don't know, 60, 70, 100 Ks away from the shop. So they need to be able to
Yep.
fit it onto the back of a ute or into a trailer and bring it into us every now and again. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've found for the type of residential jobs I used to do that the 42-inch was the best use for high productivity on those jobs. And as you get bigger acreage, then the 42-inch really drops off in its efficiency and its productivity.
Yeah, I don't think you can hope to be in the acreage mowing game with a 42-inch machine these days because I don't know. There's always guys pushing pushing the boundary about what the standard is, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference there, and this is a bit of a niche market as well, is if you're
Yeah.
going to a GHS system on a walker and you're doing acreage, and there's not a lot of people that want the acreage caught with a Walker GHS or a Gianni Ferrari, but I think in that sort of bracket, you're talking 42 to 48-inch machines with the GHS system on there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing about 42s and 46s is that they tend to be the last of the machines you get with twin cutting spindles as well. So they
Yeah, I think
tend to
48s
be,
usually go up to the triples, don't they?
yeah, 48s you go to triples. And so with a 42 or a 46, you've got really good clearance. Like
Yep.
those decks clear like nobody's business because they're not having to pass
Yes.
the grass from one spindle to another spindle to another spindle and then out the side.
And the other thing with the triple spindle there, the middle spindle sits in front of the other two.
Typically, yeah, so it can overlap the blades. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas with a 42, you'll often see a 42 deck is on a skew like that. It'll have a leading side to the deck and a trailing side to the deck.
Yes.
And that's just so that they can overlap the two cutting spindles and without leaving a strip up the middle.
Yes.
Yeah, so they look 42 sometimes look a bit funky compared to a 48 or a 52 or a 54, whatever. But they're that way for a reason.
Yeah, I only know of one triple spindle machine that runs all of the spindles in a straight line, and that's with Walker because they're geared so they can overlap.
Yeah, as long as you don't shear a blade pin, you're all good.
I know the fun of doing that.
Yeah, they're not made for cutting blades, or cutting their own blades.
It's a sad feeling when you've put a brand new set of blades on there, brand new set of shear pins, and then pop, rattle, bang.
You know when you've done it, though.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like a car muncher, anyway.
Yep. Yeah, I've done that a couple of times.
Look, that happens. There's not much you can do about that. Yeah, You'd rather do a set of blades than a gearbox.
Yeah, it's a brief curse. Go and fix it and get on with it.
Yeah, a set of blades, I don't know, might be $150, but a gearbox is a bit dearer than that, I think. You're having to rip the teeth out of the gearbox, so...
I've had to do a set of gearboxes on a Walker deck, and with a 42-inch deck, it cost me. This is years ago. It cost me $1,200 to rebuild the deck when I had to rebuild the gearboxes. That's
probably reasonable. I don't know what gearboxes cost. But anyway,
that's a few years ago. I would imagine it could be $2,000 now.
Yeah, probably. Jesus, I don't know. The cost of things start to surprise even me these days, yes. But anyway,
but that was with me doing the work too. So if I was to pay your shop to do that work, then you got labour on top of that.
Yeah, the cost of parts alone is getting crazy. A lot of it is freight and stuff these days. It's the falling Australian dollar is not doing us a lot of goods at the moment because it doesn't really matter where any of the parts are actually made in our industry. They're all made, shipped to the States in a warehouse and then distributed from there. And it's all happening in America. It's all happening in US dollars. And we're dropping.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Well, I've taken up 2 hours of your time, Tom.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
It's been good. We've covered some interesting topics.
We have. Anything else we missed or... I don't know.
Oh, look, I reckon we could keep on talking, but I'm mindful of your time. I don't want to keep you away from your family.
That's all right.
It's all good fun.
Awesome.
No worries. Look, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I hope the dungeon was warm enough for you.
Yes, mate. Yeah, it's beautiful. I've got the air conditioner on. It's nice. So.
That's the way.
Well, I think we're about to have a cracking thunderstorm by the look of the outside, but anyway, see how it goes.
Yeah, they've forecast it. All right. Have a good evening. I'll catch you later.
You too, mate. Catch you, mate. Cheers.
Right.
Thank you for listening to Aussie LawnStars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.